So maybe
how this was going to be a video call.
My worry is that if I record video, it might degrade the quality of the line significantly.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, so if you want, I could do that to kick things off, but I suspect that to run through the hour, it's best to run it without a video. I'm guessing that you guys still remember what I look like.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine.
All right.
Yeah, I'm afraid the bandwidth issue may not be good enough for video. So
yes, I just got off a call, and that's what we all learned, that to have more meaningful conversations is best to keep the video out of it, unfortunately. But I take it that you can hear me clearly.
Yes, we can.
Yes, we can.
Yes, we can.
Excellent.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Hi, Mary.
Yeah, hi. Sorry, they were yet to join us. Hope we're all keeping safe and we're having a great week. And we had a great week. Today, we have our facilitator, Kelvin, and our co-facilitator, Temitope and Ifeanyi. So I'm going to, it's already 4:01, so I'm going to give the floor to them.
Okay, thank you very much, Mary. I don't know if we should wait for the next 4 minutes to see how people join. I see we're rapidly increasing in number. We're about 10 now. Should we wait till 4:05 before we start?
My sentiment on issues like that is it's always very unkind to people who showed up on time. I think especially for meetings within Verake, if we say we start at 4, I think we should start at 4. If people choose to join a little later, I think they would understand if they've missed a little bit.
Okay. And we're recording, so we can always share the audio later. So I'll start right away. So thank you, Mary, for the introduction. So essentially, this is the first in our business resilience and new growth campaign. And this campaign is a series of initiatives that we plan, that Verake is leveraging to advise its stakeholders on how to unlock new sources of growth and value while remaining elastic to unexpected change. Kelvin will be kicking off this session with the topic Resilient Leadership in Action. I will be the co-moderator for today. I'll be co-moderating with Ifeanyi. So quick house rules. We're recording this webinar so you can get the audio later. Attendees should be in listen-only mode. We're gonna have a question and answer at the end of the session, but you can drop your questions in the comment section and we will answer them during the question and answer. Also, please remember to mute your microphones. So Kelvin, like I mentioned earlier, will be the speaker for this webinar. Kelvin is a senior partner at Verake, where he heads the ventures practice and supports the real sector practice. He began his career with Accenture, formerly Andersen Consulting, and he took on progressively more responsible roles and led a variety of consulting assignments in Nigeria and overseas. He was president for Coca-Cola across West, East, and Central Africa, and has worked in every major market and every country in Africa. Kelvin holds an MBA from Emory University in Atlanta, Georgia, and a BS in Metallurgical and Materials Engineering from the University of Ile-Ife in Nigeria. So this webinar, the Resilient Leadership in Action, will introduce the concept of resilient leadership, about leaders who can adapt not only to supporting the organizations through ongoing change, but also maintaining high-performing and engaged teams in the process. In this hour-long webinar, Kelvin will review and discuss 5 to 6 major themes. One is what resilient leadership is and what it means to be truly resilient, how people can build resilience for themselves, and what employees need to do to foster resilience, what employers need to do, to foster resilience in their people. Kelvin will also take us through the essential skills for resilient leadership and the role of purpose in resilient leadership. He would also discuss why change is frequently difficult and will provide insight into what makes people resilient and tools and tips that they can use to lead and accelerate change. We hope that this will be a very meaningful exchange of ideas between Kelvin and all of us, and we implore you to listen and drop your comments in the comment box. We'd like to start with this very quick poll. Let me see how I can put a poll in, because we want to get your thoughts on resilience. Let me set up a poll. I think I'll just move on. I'm unable to set up a poll.
Yeah, sure, Temi. I think it's something that you can come back to in the middle of the session.
Yes.
Tell me before now, you can't be testing data. You should have practiced that before now. You're keeping people waiting.
Noted me. So, Ifeanyi, over to you.
Thanks, Temi. Good afternoon again, everyone. I think the way that I would like to proceed is just have like a short, you'll be in short question format type of presentation, right? So I'll ask a number of questions to Kelvin, and then he will provide answers, and then based on those answers, we'll take a number of questions from the audience. What I want to do is also present my screen, because I think it just helps the audience follow what the questions are. Just let me know when you have my screen.
We can see your screen.
Perfect. So like I said, it's going to be in short answer questions format. So Kelvin, I'll ask a number of questions. I think Temi already alluded to some of them, and then get your quick feedback, and then also make room for interjections from the audience as well. I think we'll be doing good on time. So the first question that we have here is, what does it mean to be resilient? And I know that the topic for today is resilient leadership. And I think in your response to this particular question, Kelvin, if you don't mind, maybe you also touch on who is the leader as well. So it's going to be a two-sided question now. What does it mean to be resilient, and who is the leader?
Okay, thank you very much, everyone. And Temi, Ifeanyi, and everyone, thanks for this opportunity. I think it's a very laudable platform. I'm hoping that this could grow and become something that not just people within the organization would want to be part of, but even some of our clients as well. So what does it mean to be resilient? I guess before we even go into the leadership or business context of it, it's important that we understand what it means as a word. You know, I quickly went through the dictionary and advised me that resilience is the ability to return something to the original form after being bent or stretched or compressed. You know, another one said, in the context of a person, it is the capacity to recover quickly from adversity, from difficulties, from toughness or depression. So in the context of a business, and this is where I'm now using my experience to define it, I think it is the capability to deal with business cycles, you know, the ups and downs, as it were, of a business, or the dynamism of operating in a VUCA world. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the word VUCA. You know, it's a notion that the operating environment for business is volatile, it's uncertain, it's complex, and it's ambiguous. It's volatile, it's uncertain, it's complex, and it's ambiguous. You know, and those words acting in concert, I think, eloquently describe the environment we've gone through in the last 3-4 months. When we started this year, no one, you know, barring a clairvoyant, no one could have predicted that the world that we were welcoming just a short 6 months or 7 months ago, you know, would shut down after 2 months, and businesses would have to literally, globally, you know, have to rethink the very foundation of their business model. But that's the world in which we live in. So in the context of leadership, therefore, resilience is a critical quality. It's a crucial characteristic that you'd find of high-performing leaders, because it is how leadership enables the business to deal with the curved balls that inevitably come towards organizations as it is being led strategically from where it's at to a defined destination. You know, and if you understand leadership, you realize that leadership is not just leading oneself, it's leading a whole ecosystem of people. Meaning that leaders must cultivate in themselves and in others what it takes to advance and to adjust and to thrive, even with the operating context changing. Let me close by saying to this question by saying that why is this important? Because one, as the leader, you as a leader, I have found out, at least from my experience, you are the primary driver of the emotional balance of the organization. You are the custodian of the tonality, the energy level of the organization. You carry the responsibility of helping to protect the energy of the people in terms of, you know, how they show up at work, how enthusiastic and motivated they are in doing whatever it is that they need to do to move the organization forward. Whenever curved balls come, that energy level is always disrupted. Is always disrupted. You can imagine the big news that came. Oh, they want to buy us, you know, for example, or our competition just launched a major product or something. You know, you find that kind of news, that kind of event, even though external to the business, fundamentally alters the confidence of the organization, the energy level of the organization, the tonality and context within which people operate. It is your job to help restore that to levels that would enable the organization continue to perform and to excel, you know. And that's why your emotional leadership or your resilience as a leader is extremely important. So it's a back of the house type way of defining leadership. You know, leadership is embodying all that it takes, you know, to galvanize an organization. And I use that word carefully, to galvanize an organization from where it's at to a defined strategic goal or vision.
Thanks a lot, Calvin. I think there's a lot to sort of unpack from that first question and your answer as well. I think in response to the question you raised about VUCA, I think the first time I even heard the term was actually on one of our sessions here. I think it was NY that was taking that session. So indeed, there are some very important learnings that come forward from this interactions that we have. I'll move on now to the second question. So this second question says, how can people build resilience and why is it important today?
Okay, let me start with why is it important? Why is it important? You know, for many years, I led a fairly significant operation. And one of the things I learned as I moved up the organization, moved up in positions of increasing responsibility, is what organizations really look for when they want to put people in operating roles or in roles of increasing importance. It used to be that when I was much younger, I used to think, well, you know, it's your academic depth, it's your what was the word? It's how you know, how much knowledge you have, you know, with what finesse you do your work and all that kind of stuff. But what I later learned, and I learned this, funny enough, after a long time, you know, when I actually occupied a leadership position, I now needed to promote people, you know, into very critical roles. I later realized that it's really around their resilience. Yes, we want people who are competent, you know, who can get the job done. Yes, we want people that people want to work for, you know, who are compassionate and can lead teams and can engage and inspire people as well as themselves. Yes, we want people who can develop, you know, destinations that are logical, that are challenging and yet achievable, and who can navigate there. Yes, you need all those nice things. But when it comes to giving someone a role, you know, of the $3 billion that you have to deliver in a year, you know, let's say $500 million chunk that someone has to help you deliver, you know, when it comes to determining who you give it to, at the end of the day, it's based on how they stand up in the crossfire of dealing with day-to-day business. You know, we know that business is going to throw the operating context is going to throw in the way of the business different curved balls. We know there will be bad days. We know there will be bad news. We know, you know, when you introduce a business plan and you say, oh, I'm going to do this in the next year and a half, you know, something that you really say is that this is conditioned on a set of assumptions, and that this will be achieved only if all things work as planned. Guess what? Nothing actually works as planned. So the task of managing the organization is how well you deal with those inevitable challenges, inevitable surprises, curveballs that come. So you give your job, in essence, to a soldier that you know will fight the battle, will not quit, will not disappoint in the face of fire, you know, will understands what responsibility is, you know, can face the challenge of being the face of either what is working or what is not, can in difficult times stand up straight and motivate the troops and get you there. You know, so that is why resilient leadership is extremely important. You know, how can people build this? Experience is a part of that. You know, I find that you know, we're all work in progress. You know, I found people who, I mean, they speak the role, they look the part, they do whatever. You know, as matter of fact, when they're looking at you, they're thinking, I mean, what's so special about this guy? Why would? But at the first battle, they collapse. You know, they just whittle down like a doll, like a baby doll. You know, they grow defensive. They lose their composure. They start fighting their people. They start, you know, reflecting responsibility and so on. So the key is going through the crucible of of challenge. That's why when people are growing in the operating line, they say that they are given roles of increasing importance. So obviously you have to start relatively small, and then as you show yourself and build the capability to operate at that level, then you're taken to higher levels. Now, what changes in the person as the person moves from level to level? The first thing that changes, I think, is self-awareness. You realize, by the way, if I'm talking too much, just interject at the right time.
I will do. I'm enjoying it so far. So go ahead.
Okay. The first thing is self-awareness. When we start out, we have a notion of ourselves that usually is divorced from the reality of who we are and how we impact others. Then as we go through the crucible of challenges, you have to deliver numbers, you keep trying what you think makes sense. You learn that what makes sense to you may not necessarily make sense because the results every week come out and they tell you it's not working, and then you begin to realize that, wait a minute, there's a sense in which I could think something is right and yet it's wrong, and that begins the process of you learning about yourself, then you begin to get feedback from people. Sometimes you think, oh, I'm so friendly with my guys. How come they are not motivated? Then you realize that you do things that impact them in particular ways. So the first role, the first area of growth as you build resilience is self-awareness. Understanding how you impact the job and how we impact others, and appreciating its importance. You can almost draw a straight line where as your executive self-awareness grows, your ability to operate at a much higher level also grows, and your ability to impact the business in a positive sense also grows. The other thing is attention, is ability to having the flexibility and the stability of focus through different situations. What challenging situations always tend to want us to do is to draw us, into those challenging situations, almost like, oh, yeah, I'm running out of cash. That becomes the topic and you lose perspective of everything else. As you go through those events, you then help, you retain the ability to, yes, deal with the issues on hand, but also keep focus on where you are in the context of everything else, or where the business is at in the context of everything else, and in context of what it needs to do. Because unless you retain that focus, you can't help the business, to steer, while everybody's pigeonholed on the issue that is most demanding of attention at a particular point in time. For you to lift your head up and guide your people, so to speak, to the promised land, you need to have that perspective as well. So building that stability of focus is a critical part of building resilience. Learning to
I think to a large degree, Kelvin, I think you're already addressing what would have been my next question. But I think I hear a lot of what you're saying about the individual building resilience. And some of what is already sort of coming to my mind at the moment is this sort of age-long debate of nurture versus nature, right? So some people would think that sort of leadership comes naturally to them and maybe attributed to certain types of social types and our innate makeup, But I tend to sort of lean towards your own line of reasoning that a lot of this is actually learned, So I think it then takes a curious mind and somebody who understands, what the requirements are to sort of go out of their way to understand that a lot of challenges that may come up are actually opportunities to learn something. And in this case, we are talking about learning some form of resilience, right?
Absolutely. Because how do you have to be.
I also want to move to the next question, because I think what you're saying is also in line with the next question. So we have already touched on the previous question, which is really focused on the individual person. But now we're talking about leaders within the corporate world and how do they build resilience within their employees as well. And I think a lot of what you're already saying is sort of touching on this. So please carry on. Sorry, before you respond to this, I noticed that the polls are now up. So if you can please go ahead and just respond to the polls. Tell me a good time when you want to share the outcome of the poll.
Okay, I will. We can go on. Oh.
Okay. So the third question is, let's see, what can leaders do to build resilience in employees? Communicate. You know, there are three sides to it. What you say, what your body language projects, and the actions that you galvanize. I think it would be a good way to kind of frame it. What you say, you know, your communication, both formally and informally, both at the group or different levels of groupings, it's extremely important. You know, whenever something happens that is a curveball in an organization, and you can also relate to it, you know, even in the context of a country. If something happens, people want to understand how do you say it? You know, what's your take on it? And they can only get a glimpse of that from what you say. You know, this is what I see. You know, and this is also your opportunity to say to them, this is what it means to me, by the way. And in spite of this, this is what I believe, you know, about this issue. So communication is extremely important. You know, you find that depending on where you are in the organization, if you're the head of a team, you're communicating to the team. And they say, oh, are they going to cancel us? No, we're on. Management is not saying that. This is what management is saying. We still have to focus on this. This is, you know, you're communicating. And if you're the head of a big organization, you're communicating as well. So communicate is a critical way that leaders build resilience in employees. But projecting confidence is also important because yes, communication does that to some extent, but it's a more holistic communication when you are projecting confidence. That's where your self-awareness is extremely important, your body language. They are looking at you, you're walking up the stairs to the organization. Look, does it look worried? Does it look like he slept well? You know, does it look like he's confident? Does it look like whatever? So you have to project, you know, an air of comportment, an air of confidence, an air of, you know, humble humility, you know, and so on and so on. You need to be doing this consciously. You can't allow your body language to be, you know, whimsical or unintentional, you know, because everything that you then do communicates. The way you look, you may decide, oh, I'm going to go downstairs and take coffee, because you walk through the corridor, you know, and you're very, very clear in your mind how you are coming across, because you have the awareness. You know how you behave when you are stressed, and you are managing those stress symptoms, specifically because you want to make sure you don't want to inadvertently communicate stress or communicate lack of confidence. And then galvanizing action. Vacuum, when the curved balls come, yes, people, yeah, we get what he's told us what it means. He's told us how we should see philosophically. From his body, we take confidence that, look, all is well. Yes, it's another thing, but we'll get out of it. You know, it doesn't look like, you know, it's the end of the world. So we don't think it's the end of the world. What you do to galvanize action then gives them a channel for their energy. This is what we're going to do. This is true enough. These are the actions that will take us there. This is what you need to do, Ifeanyi. This is what you need to do, Temi. This is what I will be doing. And this is how we all get there. So when you do those, you cure the negative energy that has come into the organization because of the event, you know, and you galvanize the organization to a better place. Hello?
Yes, I'm here, Kelvin. Thanks a lot for that. I think in summary of everything that you've mentioned is, the first one is communication, and the second one, you talked about projecting confidence. And I think the third and last sort of thing that you mentioned is galvanizing yourself and your team into action. But I want to just raise a point that I think your response is to a situation of crisis. So what leaders can do to build resilience in employees during a period or event of crisis. It would also be good to sort of get your perspectives on what leaders can do to build resilience proactively and not necessarily reactively during a period of crisis. But let's move along. I think there will be an opportunity to respond to this in the next 2 questions or thereabouts. Tell me, how are we doing on the polls? How are we doing on any interest to ask any questions to Calvin at the moment?
Yes, for anybody who wants to ask a question, please raise your hand and we'll come to you. Calvin will come and would address those questions. In terms of polls, we have only about 13 responses right now. I'm waiting to get to 20. Once we have 20 responses, then we can share the results of the poll.
All right, perfect. So it's not only questions, comments, suggestions, input, experiences. I think that's important as well. I think what I saw, I think at the time when the initial lockdown was lifted, was the chaos that we saw at most of the bank's branches. Sort of highlighted the breakdown in some form of proactive resilience. So these are very well-established organizations, but clearly the remote access to their services wasn't in place, and that's why we had that chaos at their bank branches at the time that the lockdown was lifted initially. So let me go to the next question. So it says, what are the essential skills for resilient leadership?
Yeah, I think we've started talking about it. I think you made a very important point that I probably didn't address earlier, which is, you need resilience ahead of crisis. You need resilience through crisis, and post-crisis. You're absolutely right. But the calibration of what you do may differ. But at the end of the day, you find that these 3 key points around communication, projection, and galvanizing the right action towards your vision are always going to be relevant, I think. The way you calibrate it and implement it when things are before the event happens, in terms of defining proactive actions, I think is important. The way you deal with the heart of the crisis is also important. But you find that you're using this basic toolkit. All right, so can you repeat the question you just asked now so that I can address it?
No, so my question was, in terms of proactive, what leaders can do proactively, even before an event of crisis. And I think you've sort of already started addressing it. But I think there's also a place for the intentionality of building that skill in the organization, but also in the employees as well. I remember a very long time ago at an oil and gas servicing firm, we had within the organization a mentoring program. So at every point in time in your growth through the organization, there was somebody who you are accountable to, who would sort of guide you on not just about your day-to-day skills, but also some sort of the client-facing skills that you require. And I think what that did for the organization, and now thinking back and in the context of the topic we are discussing today, is that you find that at any point in time, if you have somebody for whatever reason who is lacking for personal reasons or for work overload, for instance, you always have someone who is able to step in and fill that gap, so you don't even notice that gap. And I think that's really at the core of resilience, as a topic. So trying to bring that into a sort of a formal, organized structure within organizations, I think also promotes resilience to some degree. But it would be very interesting to also begin to hear from the audience at this point in time. I would we are running short of time, so I'll just very quickly ask NY, Abayomi, NT, Toluleke, if there are any inputs to this conversation so far before we go to the next question. And by the way, I'm going to ask questions to anybody else in the audience. It's not just the senior partners. Hello?
Thank you, Fine. Just one thing to add. Good evening, everyone. I think resilience is born of grit. Something you have inside of you, grit, that says you just don't give. They say there's trouble in front. You're like, okay, let it come. When it comes, we'll address it. Grit is a critical factor for success. And the more you have grit, the higher the level of grit you have, the more resilient you are to be able to face not just challenges such as COVID, but even personal challenges that come your way, or challenges in your career, because there's no career that just keeps going up, and doesn't have slight dips. So grit is, I would say, a very essential quality for anyone, and this is a quality that follows everyone into leadership, regardless of what level of leadership we're talking about. So that's just the addition I have. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Abayomi.
And I think if I can add to that, I will add a certain set of a certain type of mindset. A mindset of abundance as opposed to a mindset of scarcity, which I think is what most of us, unfortunately, have grown up to have in Nigeria, which is why you see 4 people at a bus stop and they will all be struggling to enter Modlu at the same time. Or you go to a party and all of us want to eat. We all want to be served at the same time because we've just grown up with this scarcity mindset. And if you have a mindset of abundance, if you have a mindset of a positive mindset, if you have a mindset that understands that nothing lasts forever, not good times and not bad times, and that it doesn't matter what you do. In the morning, hopefully there will be sunshine every day. And so if you have that mindset of positivity, of abundance, then you're likely to be a bit more resilient because you will understand that, yeah, this could be a cup half empty, or it could be a cup half full, or it could just mean that this cup is not empty, at least this cup has something. Whether it is half full or half empty, but this cup has something. And so for me, that resilience is important. Sorry, that mindset, it's what will keep you grounded in some form.
Thanks, NY. We have an opportunity for more input, but let me move along at the moment. The 5th question is, what is the role of purpose in resilient leadership? I think this is very smack in the middle of my comments earlier on about being intentional. So Kevin, I'd like to hear your perspectives on this.
Yeah, what keeps us going has to be the ultimate impact we want to have, and the significance of our destination to us, or to us as an organization, either as an individual or to us as a collective. The way I would like to kind of characterize it is that why would you take an examination that you failed again? Why would you do your GCE again? Because there's a larger end, there's a larger purpose. You've determined that, this is the kind of person I want to become. This bus stop is a critical milestone in getting there. So yes, I may have tried and failed, but I will try again. So the purpose is what really drives us, and you find it at the organization level. I used to remember early in my career, I was running Kenya. I was the operations manager, the country manager for Kenya. And it was a very bad year. The numbers were horrible. It didn't help that I inherited it that way. But, but one was the face of it. Every week, every month, every whatever, you share those numbers. Some of your colleagues go and share their own much better numbers, and you are showing up with these extremely negative numbers. It could be if you've ever held an operations role, it could be very humbling and very demeaning. And that was when I really learned resilience. But what motivated me was I always felt that I could always see a light at the end of the tunnel, that look, if all the things we're looking to do succeed, it will create a significant impact, one, and two, it will say something very meaningful about us as Black leaders. At that time, all my predecessors had been white. They'd been white, whatever. We were the first wave of leaders to take over from the white leaders in Africa. So I always said to myself, look, imagine when we get this right, what statement this would make. And I'll say that to my team as well. What statement would this make? It would give us a chance to say to the detractors that we have what it takes, to address challenges like these strategically and do it well. That we have what it takes to build a world-class organization. And that drive, that desire to create something of larger impact drove us through those dark days, kept us true with our strategies, even when the results were not coming, and ultimately laid the foundation for what transformed not just Kenya, but ultimately East Africa. So you're right, purpose is at the center of it. It talks about something larger than the event that you are dealing with or the challenges that you're dealing with. That could help you transcend that. Somebody asked me, how come Nigerians have never collapsed in the face of all these challenges that the country over the last 60 years have endured? Well, the word is, there's a Nigerian phrase, I forget right now. No condition is permanent, or that tomorrow is always going to be better. So I think deep down, people always felt, yes, as crazy as these times are, they are just precursors to a much better time. And that gives us the energy to withstand the difficulties of the day.
Yeah, thanks, Kevin. There's something that you mentioned that I think for me is a personal practice. And I think I see it even without knowing it, it sort of builds what we can now call resilience. So that's like sort of having your own goal, setting your own goal, or setting or trying to overcome some challenges that you set for yourself, or some targets that you set for yourself. So the personal targets. So in the example that you just gave, with all the embarrassment that would come from those moments where your region wasn't doing so well, and you set your own goal that this is something that you need to overcome. Even without the organization setting such goals for yourself, there was something that you were striving to achieve, and that sort of built some resilience for you personally towards achieving those goals. But specifically on the issue of purpose, I find that sometimes that most leaders are not very comfortable to share purpose with those who are sort of looking up to them. and it sort of even gets worse during a time of crisis. And I guess this is what your first comment about communication was addressing. You know, is there anything that you can share with us from your own personal experience that sort of helps make leaders at every stage? It doesn't have to be at executive level, a team leader and stuff like that. Is there anything that you can share with us from your personal experience that can help make us a little bit more comfortable with sharing purpose with those that we lead?
I think there's something a leader mentor of mine once told me many years ago that stayed with me, and I think is relevant. It may not seem relevant initially, but when you reflect on it, hopefully it will be relevant to answering the question you have that you've posed. And that's the fact that you say you see the organization as an emotional collective, and that when you lead the organization, you are setting the tone for the collective emotion of the organization. You're setting the tone for the collective emotion or the collective energy level of the organization. You know, there are people who are very clinical. They think, well, you know, it's what I say, it's how I say it, it's how intelligent I am in the moment, and so on. No, but sometimes when things are difficult, people just want someone that they can anchor against, you know, and realizing that, you know, a kindred spirit. You spoke earlier about, you know, somebody who would help you out. It could be your colleague, help you out when you are not really up to it at that time. You know, the day you come in and, you know, you really don't want to do anything, you know, you remember when people say, oh, I woke up on the wrong side of the bed and all that kind of stuff, when everything looked negative and, as Nee said, half empty. You need people who can pull for you at that time, can help you out, you know, and so on, and help you move to a better time, a better day. The same thing at the organization level, at the senior level. There was I don't know if you can take a story. There was in one of my last assignments. Yeah, in one of my last assignments, I was posted to run the sub-Saharan business in South Africa. You know, I was extremely tired and really burnt out, you know, even from the old assignment. But I said, okay, let me do that. The day I got there, before I unpacked my bag, while I was still in the hotel, you know, still kind of rehearsing in my brain the message to say to my new colleagues and ultimately to the organization, it was announced, and I'm not kidding you, it was announced by the South Africa government that they were going to impose a sugar tax. The significance of that was it was a $250 million impact on the bottom line, you know, and you know, $250 million gone from your, you know, from your profits, you know, even before you start an operation. Of course, it shook the organization to its core. All the stakeholders were up in arms and extremely excited. You know, the guys in Atlanta, my colleagues, you know, they were, what was the word? Sharing blame. So, oh, you knew about it, you didn't talk about it on time. And of course, the organization was extremely confused. Oh, this business is gone. Oh, I've always known that Coke business is not going to last. Now the D-Day has come. You know, it was extremely negative environment. And, you know, and the first job I would have to do was to address a town hall. And I had this script of extremely inspiring things that I was going to say and so on. You know, the new guy they were being introduced to, and hopefully, you know, I'd put a tick against the communication, the action, and all that. But when I got there and I looked at all the faces, you know, I just said to them exactly what I've just said to you now, that, you know what, when I dropped my bag in the hotel yesterday night, this is what I hope to see. You know, this is what, you know, I hope to, you know, would be hopefully a less eventful tenure here in South Africa. And only to hear this. And I then shared what it meant to me at the emotional level. how I moved from a little bit of despair to, pulling myself together. And I'm not kidding you, a large group, pulling myself together. And I'm up to the point where I'm, there's this resolve that's, come within me that says, you know what, every problem has a solution. The amazing thing is, what is important is that we all pull together, we all find the resolve, collective resolve to solve this, and I'm sure that to the extent that we act in unity, we'll solve that. Later on, I got to hear that just happened to be the message that was most relevant at that time. People didn't want to hear some inspiring words of how this didn't matter. These people didn't want to hear the examples of, oh, I've done it before, or my new strategies. They just wanted an emotional anchor, someone that they could relate to, someone that basically was expressing what they had felt and was still feeling, and yet was giving them the confidence that, yes, together we can move forward. So authenticity in leadership is extremely important. People know that you are not perfect, so you can come off the high horse. They know that you don't have all the answers, so you can give yourself a break. But they expect you to show up. They want to see you represent the very finest qualities, that you are able to, in creating clarity for the situation on hand, in creating clarity for the destination, and in helping to galvanize them around the right set of actions. I don't know. I rambled a little bit. I hope it's
no, but that's definitely a strong takeaway for me personally from that answer, Calvin. So authenticity, I think, it sort of enables you connect to people, not just your followers, not just those that you lead, but even your peers and even higher up the organization, on a level that you probably wouldn't be able to connect on, otherwise. So I think that's a key learning for me personally. I don't know about the rest of the audience. I'm just being mindful of time. I want to leave a clear 5 to 7 minutes for Q&A before we wrap up at the turn of the hour. So my next question is going to be the last. If you can please do this in a minute, and then we're going to Q&A. Thanks. Why is change difficult to push? That's the question.
One, inertia. People resist change because they believe they will lose something of value, or fear that they will not be able to adapt to the new reality. And fear and to some extent uncertainty fuels resistance. And typically, real change, the time frame for real change is long. It endures, goes through business cycles, which creates enough time for new things to happen and to further accentuate the pressures. So that's why change is difficult.
Thanks. I think that's a good place to stop before going to Q&A. Tell me, are you good to share the outcome of the polls now in maybe 30 seconds?
Yes, very quickly, I can share. We have 19 responses. 26% chose the bounce back from a crisis setback. That was their definition of resilience. 10% said that resilience is adapting well to change. And 63% said that resilience is being tenacious and keeping on going. He said all three. We wanted only one response.
Well, maybe you can give the floor to NY to quickly tell us why he said all three. Yes. But let's begin to compile the questions.
So far, nobody has raised his hand for a question. So I believe this is the right opportunity for anybody who has a question to indicate.
Perfect. Can we please do this in about 5 minutes? I also still want to give Calvin a chance to have the last word on this before we close.
There's a hand up already. Adeyemi has raised his hand up. And I think we should allow non-partners to talk. this for them as much as it is for
I
us.
absolutely agree.
So only Abayomi has raised his hand up. I think Ifeanyi, can he go on to ask this or give his comment?
Sorry, I didn't hear you.
Abayomi can give his comments now, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Abayomi.
Good evening, sir. I just have I really enjoyed the talk. I just have a real quick question about resilience, because I think oftentimes resilience get confused with, stubbornness, because, you can become stubborn, especially with business practices, and, be set on one way of doing things in the name of being resilient. So at one point, does resilience become stubbornness, and, how would you avoid that, especially with your last experience?
Thanks about me. I tend to agree with that as well. There's a clear difference between resilience and stubbornness. Absolutely. Anyone else? Where is Michael? Michael, are you on the call?
Hi, fine. Good evening.
Hi, Michael.
Yes.
Oh no. I would just like to get a different question to you. What would you expect to see to know that Veracity is growing in terms of resilience? What would you expect to see in your own sphere of work?
My answer would align with NY's comments in terms of mindset. So basically, we as a company would have to adopt a positive mindset in general towards challenges that come up. Because as Kelvin said, nothing happens as you expect initially. So, we need to all have, we need to be able to see the light at the end of the tunnel, the positive in challenging situations, and I think that helps us to focus in a way that allows us go through challenging situations.
All right, great, thanks. Any other hands raised? Sammy?
No other hand raised right now.
Eddie, I'm sure you have something to say on this. And without being political, I'm bringing the current politics. I see a lot of things that are happening, and I'm just wondering if the political leaders could have become or could have prepared better than what is currently happening to them, especially maybe like Trump, for instance. Eddie, any points to chip in there?
Hi, good evening. This is Toluleke. I won't talk about, in a way it will be in context of what is happening, but just generally, just to emphasize that my point of view is that resilience is actually a learned habit. And I got that from the lesson of apparently the first thing that high speed, the car in the car racing Formula One industry, the first thing you are taught is to keep your eyes on the road. Because apparently when you are in a crash, the natural tendency of the human mind is that your eyes should follow the direction of the car. So if your car was going to swerve off the road, most of the time your eyes will just move off the road, and that kills people. So the first thing is, no matter what happens, no matter what the direction the car is going, keep your eyes in front of you. And I guess that goes back to the comment around the question around purpose. Is the most essential thing in a crash is to have a clarity of the way forward and keep your eyes on the road. And really and truly, that is thought. That has to be learned. And I think the real issue is to understand that resilience is not from essentialism, it's not something that you have or you don't have. It's something that you consciously train yourself and you learn. And it's just to understand that no matter what happens, there is a path that you must keep your eyes on.
Spot on for me. I completely agree, and that's why I say I choose nurture over nature for sure. I think everything that you said is aligned with that school of thought as well. So we have 1 minute to go. In absence of any other comments, questions, inputs, I'll just hand it back over to Calvin to give a final word.
Thanks, Ifeanyi, and thanks, Temi, for organizing, and thanks, you guys, for being engaged all through the period. I think if there's one last word, it would be, is this common saying that tough times don't last, but tough people do. In the moment, it always seems like, it can't get any worse. That, this is as bad as it can get and all that kind of stuff. Sometimes, but it's never true. If you look through history, and this, in the last 2 years, I've been a student of history. The truth is that nothing is unique. No difficulty is unique, that hasn't been experienced in the past, and those times, as bad as they may seem in the moment, have been experienced before, and they don't last. What endures is resilience. And that's what they talk about, tough people, resilience. These are people who retain their perspective, who retain their energy level, who bring to bear the best that they've got, and who display the grit through these difficult times for the inevitable good times to come. And there's this direct correlation, and that's the point to all the young guys there. There's a direct correlation with how you show up in the difficult times and the progress you are going to make in your career. I have found that beyond competence, beyond comportment and all that, being able to show up when the stakes are most critical is a very strong predictor of lasting success in any line that you choose. So thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Calvin. Thanks a lot, Temi. Thanks a lot,
Thank
everyone.
you, Calvin.
I would have said, I wish you a restful weekend, but I don't think we have restful weekends anymore in the COVID era. But I think it's something that we must just go along with, leveraging grit and a positive mindset and staying motivated. So indeed, have a weekend.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you. Have a great weekend, everyone.
Have a lovely weekend, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.